from God. Ay, 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 ay. Yes, una be fine woman then. Men no man no fool una. Hey, una carry una head them up. I get one small talk. Una listen to me. Oh, we will be fine women them. But una know what it. All this we fine body. If we not get God inside we will be nothing, because this body them go pass away. So when I invite God for inside when I heart, make we take God for inside we heart. Hey, when I hear, and then when they will really know, so will be good thing them. When I know it, when I master they get favor, because when I they inside their life, when I be good thing them, and when I don't get favor where it come up from Daddy God. Yes. I want to one small story for who master them. With the back una make una like we una like we. Just be good thing them. position maker.
Well, thank you very much, Jesus. You are our Redeemer, and because of you, we day here today for celebrate. Today na number 2 day for moon for March, and in our Amba history today, I want to tell you, invite others. I have a great historian who will be my guest today, and this great historian is not only a historian but a learned historian. Remember, I told you that I, as a historian, have classified people into 2 categories in this life. 1, the learned friends, and 2, the educated friends. Now, I wouldn't give you which one is a priority or which one comes first, but I just want to let you know that, I can talk much about my own position and my category, and because of my educational standard, I may not be able to really describe and very much articulate the position and the standard of my learned friends. And so a learned friend coming in to meet with an educated friend will be bringing to you the history of Ambazonia. And what is that? If I remember. Let's hear. You know what I remember? I remember the history of Ambazonia, and I remember the ABC Amba TV. And as I told you, this Amba TV on our Ambazonian history, we endeavor to make sure that we tell the people of Ambazonia the truth as much as it lies within us. We want to tell them the truth, and sometimes we call it the naked truth. And when we tell the Ambazonian people the naked truth, we expect that they should rise up to the standard and be able to exercise this truth. Yes. How do they exercise the truth? By telling others to come in and make sure that they get along with us in this truth. And so we are calling on our Ambazonian people to invite other people, because it is only the truth that definitely will make you to be free. And if you do not actually get the truth, you will be wallowing and dancing and moving around a situation that would have been handled very straightforward and make us to know and do what we're supposed to do, but you'll be turning around because the truth has been hidden from you. And that's why on our ABC Amba TV concerning our Amba history, we want to let you know that the Ambazonian cause is a cause that will get victory by and through the truth. We have recently heard and seen a lot of people who actually and strongly believed in lies. And in the past few years, of about 7 years into this struggle, we have seen lies falling apart, even amongst the best of friends, or what Warchild will call a unity of liars. Yes, I think that it doesn't matter how much liars congregate together. It doesn't matter how much liars actually join hands with hands and come in to split and to spread out their lies. A day is coming, and the day will surely come, and all these liars will realize that even though they were running with the imaginary sense of making it at the end, they will end up somewhere. And the truth and honesty that is as if it has been forgotten, packed aside, and is no longer relevant, once it comes, it will beat the liars and the lies hands down. In the Ambazonian quest, we are moving forward and moving very rapidly, although some people term it moving slowly. I want to say that when a situation is fully and completely handed over to God, and God takes over, don't try to help God. I've said this time and time and time and time again. that nobody can help God. And the day you try to help God, that's the day you die like Uzziah. When he saw the ark of God and the animal that was carrying the ark of God shaking like a cocoa leaf, he felt he should quickly help God. And when he touched the ark, the history tells us that he was struck dead on the spot. So, my country people, it be very, very dangerous for try to help God. What I will advise you for do, no try to help God. Just stay in the position and in the place where He talks to me you day for day. Once you day for that position and you are happy to do what way you do, because Papa God don't tell you say make you do them, you are in for success. But when you be envious and you be jealous and you get hatred for your heart and you want to do the thing where Papa God he don't give them for another person, I'm telling you, you will end up very miserably. And when you end up miserably, you go try to blame others. Because I don't discover, say, with a human being, they the one for make sure, say, they not take their blame. May they give their blame for another person. Will be unfortunate. Ambazonians. That is why on the platform of our history, we try to educate you, we try to warn you, we try to advise you, and we do everything possible for make you to come back to which way you're supposed to be. Our Amba history believes that some people can be very, very sincere, sincerely wrong, although, and some people they be very serious, but seriously wrong too. Now, when that happens, what do we get for do? We get for throw you with the dirty water, we don't wash you. Oh no. That is why our history, it go down well. Where people where they don't fall, and then they wake up, and then they continue the race. A lot of people, I don't know how many of you don't read them. I will read for history of a particular man where he failed 99 times in his lifetime. 99. And upon all this time where he fail, it will continue. It will up continue. Fail as a husband, fail as a father, fail as a businessman, fail as a senator, fail as a statesman, fail in every ramification. But one day, he emerged to be the president of a very important country. So, Ambazonians, as I was telling you, my guest is in the house, and I want you to come inside the house now. I will allow him to introduce himself. Like I told you, he is of age and he will be able to talk for himself. And as a guest in our Amba history, a little profile of his is that he is a learned friend. I can't call him colleague. He's a learned friend to me, an educated friend. He can only be a learned colleague to another learned person. But when he becomes a learned friend to an educated person, he becomes a learned friend. And so it is my pleasure to welcome into the house our learned friend and barrister, Gana. The microphone is yours, sir, to greet the people in the house, and then we take off from there and go with what you have to tell the Ambazonian people today. Over to you.
Hello, Pastor Komando. Hello, our guest. Hello, Ambazonians. Again, lawyer Valentine Gana is my name. I'm a trained lawyer in the United States, resident in the Midwest. A partner in this journey towards liberating the wild Southern Cameroons, aka Ambazonia. Ambazonia flows in all of our blood, and it's a journey that started before some of us were born, but it's a journey which we hope to finish before we transition from this world. For most of us who are in this struggle, we've been in this struggle since from when we were conscious. Growing up in the Northwest province of Cameroon, in Bamenda in particular, and attending both secondary and high school there, I think I got my mental awareness got plugged into this struggle from when I was in my early teens. You could see the oppression around. You could see signs of us as a people in bondage. You could see us as a people being annexed. You could see us as a people where the system was trying in every possible way to sweep our history, to sweep our legacy, to sweep our culture, to sweep our right to statehood under the carpet. Growing up as a kid, again in the Northwest province, and when you got dialed into consciousness like I did growing up, you could not help but pontificate and think and strategize on what it would take to liberate the people of the wild Southern Cameroons, the people of Ambazonia, from this grip of bondage, from this grip of tyranny, from this system of colonialism and annexation. And again, while growing up, I think I remember when I was age 14 or 15, I was so captured by the need to find out about our history, to find out about all of these terms that people were throwing around: Southern Cameroons, West Cameroon, plebiscite, referendum, our people being in Nigeria, the Eastern House of Assembly, the British as a guardian, the British as a trustee. All of these terms and concepts and historical facts, I had such a foraging mind to try to learn, that I remember visiting the home of John Foncha and speaking to him and his wife at Foncha Street. I remember visiting the palace of Fongoji Dinka in Widikum to try to learn. I remember trying to seek to read books to understand who we were. How did we evolve into where we were some appendage or presumed appendage in some state called United Republic of Cameroon that metamorphosized into the bastardized Republic of Cameroon. Again, growing up, I remember when as a student of CPC Bali, I was an avid history student, in history, literature, and current events. I read all the magazines I could lay my hands on: Times, Newsweek, Africa Now, Africa Events, Jeune Afrique, The Economist. I read all of them, cover to cover, seeking to discover both myself and to discover our people. And right from CPC Bali, my father, may his soul rest in peace, already realized that, there was something about our history. And I'm saying this not just to talk about myself. The reason why I'm saying this is because our history is going to point to where we are now in this journey. If I, as a teenage student, was foraging for knowledge, was trying to discover who we were, was trying to look for every means possible to see how we could liberate ourselves, how about our comrades whose sisters have been killed? How about our comrades whose mothers have been raped? How about our comrades whose sisters have been made to drag through mud? How about our brothers, our parents, whose parents have been killed by the genocidal army of La République du Cameroon, supported by France, whose parents, sisters,
Okay.
brothers are
Um,
killed, and to indignify that, burn the cup. Just hold on for a minute, Pastor Komando.
Barrister, I think you should call your fire. Hold your fire. Hold your fire. The microphone is
I don't
yours for
have
all
any
the time.
pause button.
Just hold
I
your
don't have
fire.
any. All right.
Yes, just hold your fire, Barrister. I'm going to give you the microphone. You will do all the talking. There are some important points that you have just mentioned. I want us, because from what I'm hearing you saying, there is fire in your bones, and I don't want you to spew it out at this one sitting where the people of Ambazonia will not understand. We are here to make them to understand. The first thing I want you to do, you have greeted the people and you just caught up with the fire. And you mentioned some few things. Number one, when you were growing up, in what you knew at that time to be the Northwest province of Cameroon. And then secondly, at a youthful age, with the research you were making, you went to Fondinka's village, you went to Foncha's village to see these elderly statesmen. I want you to pick up from there. Are you still saying that the Northwest province is the history that you have discovered that we are? Or is something else that you have discovered in your research, because there was something that was being hidden under the carpet and now you have discovered? So can you take up from there and tell us what you now know from what you knew at that time as the Northwest province, which is actually not the Northwest province, because La Republic does not have anything called Northwest province in our country. Can you take up from there and talk to us on these 2 points? Pick up that first point, then after that, we go over to when you were a youth and when you visited some of these people. Now, talk as much as you can talk with these points, and then give us a space, because people will ask you questions. Go ahead. The microphone is yours now.
I will summarize. Sometimes I'm a stubborn man, and I hope you would pay me.
No, I understand. Go ahead.
I am going to summarize what I was saying, and then I will leapfrog to the question you asked. And so when I finished, my own father banned me from studying history in high school, because he already saw that I was consumed with who we were. And I was sort of exiled to the United States because my father did not even let me go register at the university in Yaoundé. And when I came to the United States, with what God had already put in me, I asked God to do me a few things. That God, if you really want me to continue in this journey, you got to do these things for me. And every time I asked God, he did those things. I'm not going to name what those things are, but pivoting to what you said about not just the Northwest, but the Northwest and Southwest that the bastardized La République du Cameroon has sort of carved and pigeonholed us into. There is nothing like the Northwest and Southwest. Absolutely nothing. I seem to come from Mogamo. Is Mogamo part of the Southwest or the Northwest? It's a transitory zone. We move from the savannah through the transitory zone into the forest zone and down to the coastal zone. So, I mean, during the British rule, they had various divisions. And Widikum, that area was part of the Manfe division. So there's nothing really as the Northwest and the Southwest. The Northwest and Southwest are provincial designations by a colonial power, La République du Cameroon, assisted by France, to sort of divide us as a people. Because us, as the erstwhile Southern Cameroons, we are a people recognized by international law as a people with the right to self-determination. Read the case that went in front of the African People's Court in Banjul in 2009, where they ruled, if you read paragraph 20, that the people of the southern Cameroons, they describe them as the Anglophones of Cameroon. The people of the south, they are a people with a right to self-determination. So you cannot compartmentalize us into northwest and southwest and hope for that designation to stick. It will not stick. You can categorize Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland as the British and try to rule them in whatever way you can. It will not stick. Italy can come and categorize Cyrenaica and which is present day Libya and try to rule it the way it wants. It still will not stick. A people have their right to self-determination from their history, and our history goes back to 1919, after the First World War. In fact, the history of that area goes back to the 1850s. But I'm not going to go that far back, which is really where, if you look at the Amba's Bay, the hinterland from the Amba's Bay, which is where our name comes from. But our right in law as a people comes from 1919, 1920 at the Treaty of Versailles in France. After the First World War, after Germany was defeated and Germany's colonies were taken. That is the same place that French Cameroon gets its right from. And these two territories then became a Class B trust territory, first under the League of Nations, and then later after 1946, when both French Cameroon signed the trusteeship agreements with France and British Southern Cameroon signed the trusteeship agreements with England, we now became a Class B trust territories, us under England and French Cameroon under France. And we were not colonies to these powers. We were United Nations trust territories. So the whole thing about Northwest and Southwest is DOA, dead and on arrival. It is null and void. It is a colonial designation to compartmentalize, to divide, and to govern us. And then, I know you really want to stick with this historical fact. And for ease of administration, the British sort of affixed us to the Eastern House of Assembly in Nigeria. The British themselves divided Nigeria, again, for cultural ease of administration, into three sections. You had the northern section, you had the eastern section, and then you had the southern section with its capital in Lagos. The eastern section had its capital in Enugu, and they had a House of Assembly where we were affixed there from 1946. And that lasted just about a short 7 years. Again, a lot of us know our treatment by the Eastern Nigerians at that time, and our treatment was not right. So in 1953, our leaders bolted out of the Eastern House of Assembly in Nigeria to set up self-government in Boya, and they requested from the British, we are a United Nations trust territory. We are a separate people from Nigeria. We are a people who want to establish our own self-government. So they set up a state in 1953 in Boya and had elections to determine the leader of that state in 1954, where Dr. E.M.L. Endeli won and became the first premier of the Southern Cameroons. So going back to your question, Pastor Komando, about Bamenda or about the Northwest, there is really nothing that is legitimate in calling us the Northwest or calling our brothers who are closer to the coastal zone from the Southwest. These are just colonial designations, and French Cameroon is a colonial power. It's a proxy colonial power being teleguided by France to annex, to exploit, to brutalize, with the hope of disenfranchising the people of the Southern Cameroons from their rightful right to statehood. So I know I went maybe further than you might have asked, but I just wanted to put it in a larger historical context.
All right. You have answered the first question. Nothing absolutely like Northwest and Southwest, and nothing absolutely like the one of the provinces of the Republic of Cameroon. Ambazonians, I think you get it clear. Now, tell us the zeal you had at that 18 years or at your youthful years that you went to Pa Godijinka and then you went to Pa Foncha. Can you tell us what were you craving for? What did you see? What were your prospects? And how did you, I mean, just tell us what was boiling in you at that time. And let's see whether the fire has increased now that things have come to the limelight or it has boiled down a little bit. Over
You
to
see,
you.
to some of our mothers who are in their late 60s and 70s right now, and I want to applaud them for the great job they did in raising us. But they did, not just our mothers and our fathers, they did a great job in raising us against such epic odds. All our parents, especially those who work with the government, we would remember how they used to get an education, especially those who were in teaching, working in some government service. And for them to get their pay, they had to travel to Yaoundé, be it in the late 60s or in the 70s. They had to travel to Yaoundé and go through the indignity of staying in people's homes for weeks, chasing for documents from ministry to ministry, trying to get their earned and well-deserved pay from this colonial government. We used to witness our parents go stay sometimes for up to a month, just chasing to be able to get their pay. Sometimes they'll have to borrow money from friends and relatives so that they could make the transport to get their pay. Sometimes they had to travel through the western province of La République du Cameroon, the Bamileke area, where there were still maquisards. And our parents faced the threat of having their heads chopped off. We witnessed our own parents, our own fathers, who were in business, and those who managed to get contracts with the government. We managed how they will go through indignities to even get pay for rightful work that they did. We witnessed all of these indignities of being in a country where going through primary school, secondary school, high school, at that time, you knew you were not even going to be able to go attend a university where the instruction was in English. Some of us had to go to Nigeria to write the JAM in attempts to further our education in a university where the medium of instruction was English. You grew through a country where just because the police officer or the army or the gendarme spoke French, you were subjected to such indignities. It was later on that we discovered that it was because we were a colonized and an annexed people. So you ask me, what was it about you that caused you to forage for all of this knowledge, to try to go through a journey of self-discovery for our people? It was because of the indignities, colonial in nature, that were ambient to us. And ambient in this sense meaning surrounded on all sides. And when all of that knowledge came together, and when the summary of it came together, some of us knew that this conflict or our status was going to end up in warfare. Some of us knew that it was going to end up in a fight, because when the oppressor, when the brutal colonial or supposedly colonial master has gotten so much to the sweet tooth of oppression, when the slave master in this case, La République, has gotten so much used to taking our natural resources, to abusing our parents, to abusing our sisters, to abusing our state institutions, to decapitating all what the Southern Cameroons had, Power Camp, Santa Coffee Estate, just to name a few. When they've been so used to taking everything that you have and seeking to deprive you of your own very humanhood. Then you have to assess the situation, and you have to know that this is going to end up in warfare. And the CIA, in a cable, warned the government of Cameroon in 1986 that what they were heaping on the people of the erstwhile Southern Cameroons, they called it Anglophones, but the people of the erstwhile Southern Cameroons, I have a copy of that communique that the CIA sent. They warned the government of Cameroon that these people are going to resort to armed conflict to try to resolve the situation. So what was it that made me seek all of this knowledge? It was because of what was all around us. That has only continued to increase as time went on. And that has left us with no option but to fight to defend our very human existence. Just like the people of Ukraine are shedding their own blood and fighting to defend their own very human existence. Thank you for the question, Pastor Komando.
Thank you very much. It answers it very clear. Ambazonians, listen, when you don't know your history, you will not know how to progress and what to do. The learned friend just said that right in the time of their youth, they foresaw an impending war that was going to happen. I do not know whether he knew that was going to happen at this time in his time. But let me ask the question to mix up with this. Now, Barrister, can you tell us a little bit, the youth of today who have the same age you had at that time that you were craving, are they craving to see Ambazonia emerge the way you were craving when you were a youth at that time? And if not, what do you think is the reason why they are so dormant and why they are so indifferent and why they are, sitting where they are sitting? Because if you look at the 3/4 of the youths, less than 30 years, they have not seen, they have not heard some of the things we are talking today. And for that reason, they are what and where they are. So can you go ahead and then try to insinuate if you actually can find out so that we can put sense in them to know where we are coming from and where we are going? I don't know, is my question clear? Over to you.
Yeah. Your question is very clear, Pastor Komando. Let me tell you something. I'm going to quote. I'm going to render a quote that JFK, John F. Kennedy, was used to making that. He himself paraphrased it from General Charles de Gaulle. JFK used to say, "Nations are like people. They do not have permanent friends, but they have permanent interest." It's something you have to realize. In any society, there is a nucleus that is the conscious nucleus that thinks and plans and strategizes, and that will rise to help transform that society to what that society deserves to become. And so it is normal for a majority of the youth sometimes to become dormant, or even to help the other side out of ignorance or greed, because that fundamental nature of man, that reptilian nature of most people, a preponderant majority of people, seek self-interest. And so when people get up in the morning, if you study Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they want to fulfill their basic needs of shelter and food and clothing. And all those are consonant with self-interest. But there are also that critical number who would transform beyond that self-interest to thinking beyond just food and shelter and clothing, to thinking about bigger things in society. They are that critical mass that have a lateral mindset, that seek to educate, and that seek to take those risks to transform the society. It was not every lawyer or every fund that stood up to challenge the government of La République du Cameroun at the 1985 Congress in Bamenda. Von Gojidinka was among the few of that critical mass that since 1984-85 began writing pamphlets against the bastardized status of French Cameroon, the new social order, dissolve the time bomb, and a lot of other pamphlets that Von Gojidinka wrote, whereby he was arrested, kidnapped, tortured, tried, and even vindicated by the military tribunal in Yaoundé, because he was right that Barr had seceded from his own fake union. So he needed to let the people of Ambazonia, aka Southern Cameroon, go. And they still kept Dinka until he escaped and found his way out of the country. So just like you had people like Von Gojidinka, people like Albert Mukong, people like Dr. Siga Asanga, people who are lateral minds that seek to transform the society. People like Justice Nyok Wakai, who were there at their own time, strategizing to change what they saw as Cameroon into something they thought could be better. But they realized that when the first button on your shirt is crooked, every other button will be crooked. You have to fix that first button on your shirt. So when you talk about the youth of today, I don't pay so much attention to those who are docile, though we owe it to educate them on why they should support the struggle. I pay attention to the valiant youths that have stood up. That when they came and they started killing our people in 2016 and 2017, when the Southern Cameroons did not own one gun to fight back, when French Cameroon came and was mowing our people with helicopter gunships, when they were killing people in Bamenda, in Bengui, in Du, in Boya, in Kumba, in Kambe, these valiant heroes stood up to fight against French Cameroon. When they started killing our people and we did not even have one shotgun to fight back, some of us who shed inward flowing tears in the diaspora said maybe if 1 or 2 or 3 gendarmes could get their own bloodshed in Ambazonia, and if the cries could be not just on one side of the Mongo, and if we could have cries on the other side of the Mongo, then they would understand our pain. And God has armed our people, and God has armed our boys, and God chose people who rose, like General Biebie, like General Tiger, people like No Pity, people like General F.M. Sagon, who are fighting to liberate our homeland. So yes, shame unto those who are docile. Yes, shame unto even those who are in the diaspora, who are able to contribute. If you're against the armed action, you can contribute to help the wounded. You can contribute to help the sick. You can contribute to help the refugees. But shame unto those in their 30s and their 40s who cannot even muster the willingness and the heart of mind to lend a hand to this struggle. But yes, as you say, there are people who are docile, but I pay heed. My thanks, my appreciation goes to those who have risen and have sought the means to fight, to defend our people, so that Betty Ewondo Bulu troops cannot walk into Kendem in Widikum and pick up a child and throw that child in a cauldron of boiling oil. So that Betty Bulu Ewondo troops cannot walk into Bali and just gather hard-working Ben Sikinas and kill them and add indignity to their corpse by burning them. So that French Cameroon troops in Santa cannot lure peaceful youths into a hotel and murder them. So that French Cameroon troops supported by France cannot travel into Ngabu in the dark of the night and just slaughter our children and slaughter our moms and set their corpses on fire. By the way, an act which French Cameroon itself accepted after trying to deny it, which French Cameroon accepted when there was mounting evidence that it were its troops that went into Ngabu and committed that genocidal crime. Pastor Komando. So that French Cameroon troops disguised cannot go into a school in Kumba and open fire on innocent school children. So I pay heed to these valiant heroes who had no training and who sought every means to get the means to be able to rise up, to defend our people, so that there will be a price to pay when French Cameroon troops venture into our localities. These are the unsung heroes that will liberate Ambazonia, and I tip my hat off to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ambazonians, when I have these learned friends come into this program, 1 hour is just like 10 minutes. Can you imagine that when he finishes last speech after this, we'll be rounding up? It is so small, but there are a number of things I want him to just keep by because he will be coming back. I want to tell those of you who are youths, 30 years downwards, your colleagues that are back at home, they have given in everything. Some of you have managed to escape and you are in the diaspora and you are saying it is that their thing. Well, continue to say it's that their thing. A time is coming when your consciences will come back, if at all they will come back, and then you realize that you made a very big mistake. Okay, before we go out of this program today, I want to mention a very important figure that has been important from the time Ambazonia started being Ambazonia. And today, instead of being a father and a consolator and an advisor, I don't know where he is. I do not know whether you will know. But let me just mention it. I hear that the famous Professor Council Anyangwe was the one who defended Ambazonia in the Banjul court for Ambazonia to stand to be where we are standing today when things were still boiling. Is that true?
That's a very good question. I've read that ruling, but I have to be honest that I don't remember who the lawyer was that defended our people. Again, the name of that case was Kevin Goumet et Augustin Dangam v. La République du Cameroun. Maybe I was so focused on grasping everything I could about the case that I did not pay that much attention to who the lawyer was. But this is what I'm going to say. I know Professor Anyangwe. Him and I did a presentation in Illinois at a black church with some congressmen there to sensitize them of our plight. Him and I participated in a presentation in Maryland when I think it was the AP NC or something like that. A conference that was organized by Professor Fontem Neba, where I was present. Professor Carlson Anyangwe was present. People like Sako, Dr. Sako and Bo Herbert, and a lot of our comrades were present, and we had a spirited convention, you know. And so he was there. I got to speak with him. I know him. I mean, there are a lot of things that are said about people, and sometimes, as a trained lawyer, I try not to jump to conclusions, because you always have to see things in an evidentiary manner and from several vantage points to be able to conclude. But just the fact that he is in the struggle, just the fact that he's sacrificing time to try to push the needle, other people might see it in other ways, and they might be right. But anybody who has raised his voice, who has spent his resources, who has made an effort to try to push our cause forward, even with their weaknesses, I want to tip my hat off to them. But Pastor Komando, there's just something, I know we are here to talk about our history, and it would do injustice to those who are listening for me not to. Just give me 3 minutes. Let me hammer on this point. I know you're going to give me a chance to conclude, but let me hammer on this point. Our right to statehood, our right to an independent nation, is what we call in law indivisible, which means you cannot defeat it. Only our people can give away that right, or trade away, or negotiate it away. If you read UN resolutions 1514 XV, 1541 XV, 1608 XV, our right to independence, our right to statehood are enshrined in there. And UN resolution 1514 and 1541 came out December 14 and 15, 1960. If you read UN resolution 1608, that came out April 21st, 1961, it defines our independence, and it gives our people the right to negotiate what kind of state they want to have in a federation with French Cameroon. And sometimes we also malign our leaders, like Foncha and the people that surrounded him at that time. We have to understand that at that time, Foncha was struggling in discussions between the British and the French and our people. And sometimes with a glorified grade 2 education, they did not have the best of execution power to be able to channel us towards the right path. And one thing our people need to know is that our leaders at that time from declassified cables, even S.T. Muna, Foncha, Endeli, and a lot of them were telling the British, we don't want independence. We want an independent state. If you don't want to give us an independent state, don't give us this thing called independence by joining. They protested against it. We have to realize that even before they went to the plebiscite on February 11th, 1961, Foncha sought permission from the British to meet with Ahidjo, to discuss with Ahidjo on what the structure of the federal state was going to be. And they made a publication in one of the papers in Yaoundé on what that state was going to be. And the name of that state was going to be the Federal United Republic of Cameroon. If you read the minutes of the Decolonization Committee at the 994th plenary session, you'll find out all of this information. But even though they wanted to grant us independence by joining, you have to remember that some countries in that decolonization committee objected to the United Nations giving us independence or the British giving us independence by joining. If you read the words of Mr. Siang in the minutes of the decolonization committee that have gone through with a fine-tooth comb, the representative from China, Mr. Siang, he abstained from voting. He said, this is annexation, pure and simple, And China is not going to cast a vote to even participate in it. And Mr. Xiang said some countries who are making all of these efforts to craft this resolution on independence by joining will regret it down the line because it's not going to work. We have to remember, since we're here to talk about our history, that even in the British Parliament in 1959, Lord Alton protested what Britain was doing to trade away a sovereign right through independence by joining. He said this is wrong. The Southern Cameroons is not Britain's to deal away. The Southern Cameroons is a trust territory of the United Nations. And if Britain cannot do what is right, consistent with United Nations mandates, and if you read Article 76A and B, that instructed what was supposed to happen, Britain should definitely just hand back the colony or the territory to the United Nations. If you read the word of the United States Congressman from Wisconsin, Mr. Zabloki, who was representing the United States at the United Nations in 1959 when they were trying to craft all of this independent by joining, he said this is wrong. He said it would be catastrophic for the political future of the territory, and this rushed deal to grant them independence through joining was inconsistent with the rules. So our right to statehood, our right to independence has been manifestly demonstrated with clarity, and only us, the people of the Southern Cameroons, can trade it, negotiate it, or deal it away. And picking a few pinheads or knuckleheads to Canada to try to negotiate our right to sovereignty is one of the biggest and the fattest jokes on planet Earth. It shall not work. Legally, it is what we call DOA, dead on arrival.
On arrival.
Thank you, Komando.
Wow. Barrister, I think the Ambazonians need to get this history in its depth, because sometimes when we talk, we're just talking shallow. From what you are saying, we now understand that the war we are fighting now was predicted right back in the early 60s, when some certain things were going on that were not put in place. And unfortunately, it has happened in our generation.
Pastor
And some
Komando,
people
let me
are thinking,
just hold on.
Go ahead.
Pastor Komando, just hold on for a minute. Let me piggy from that thought. You have to remember
Go
that
ahead.
the reason why it was so easy for Ahidjo to roll in the gendarmes into Southern Cameroons was because Britain governed us from Nigeria. And so Britain did not build a standing army like it could have, because the army that our people served in was the Nigerian army. And we just had a sketch of a police force. So the only reason why Ahidjo could move in the gendarmes and French Cameroon forces on challenge was because we didn't have an army. Our army was being through Nigeria. So I just wanted to, you said this thing was foreseen, it was predicted. Yes, we were colonized by force, but the reason why our people could not resist robustly, because they still resisted. There's a lot in our history that talks about how our people resisted, but they did not have the means to. So I just wanted to piggy in on that thought. Thank you for giving me that permission.
Extremely powerful. That is very, very powerful, and also pathetic. And of course, in our days, like is it Peter Butes of South Africa, who said, if not now, when? And if not us, who? So God knows how he arranged things, and he made it in such a way that all that they were talking has fallen in our generation. And the generation is the generation that has styled itself the never again generation. And if somebody is asking questions, why these things were happening and they could like foresee, and now they didn't stop it. It was just like when Wilbur went into La Republic Parliament and said, when these people shall rise, nobody shall stop them. La Republic would have stopped if they had thought and had foreseen that what the disaster they're having today, that they were going to have. I am sure some people would have stopped it. So there are some of these things that God speaks, and because even if somebody get in there as a prophet and say, "Thus says the Lord," they may not even still believe it. Not to talk of somebody who is just talking out like a politician and saying what I call it an intuition put there by God. And when God puts that intuition, like today, you are still very zealous in making sure that Ambazonia gets to the position that it's supposed to be when you started as a teenager, having that craving. Possibly you saw the suffering of your parents who were going to your one day, passing through the valley of darkness and death through the maquisards, going to stay and perch in people's houses to get maybe their arrears or their pension or whatever. And that was just the beginning of the sorrows that actually came in and swallowed the Ambazonians. And I want to say that most of the youth who are quiet today is because they were born into slavery and they grow up in that lifestyle of slavery and think that that is where and what we were. They had not seen the glories of Ambazonia before the 60s when La Republic came in. Anyway, Barrister, our time is up, and I would like you to say your concluding statement for today. And please, please, please tell the people of Amazonia you will be coming back because I will go behind you. We need to hear this so as to sit up. And it will give us the, if we are not selfish, we want to fight for our children and our children's children so that you should not go through what our parents went through and we went through deeply, and today we want to make it life for our children. So your last words, I will call it quit for today. It's just like 10 minutes, but go ahead.
Yes, Pastor Komando, before I say my last word, let me first pay my respects to some of our comrades who are behind bars here, Comrade Claude Chi, Comrade Nestor Langmi, and Comrade Francis Cheney, who were indicted by the United States authorities. I have been to court every time that they have been arraigned, every time that they've had an indictment, every time that we're just there about 2 weeks ago when they were setting up the court trial schedule. And as Ambazonians, we will be doing all we can to help provide all the data, all the material, suggest strategies, and be there to galvanize witnesses so that our comrades can receive a vociferous defense. Also, I want to pay my respect to all our comrades back in Cameroon, whether it's in they are in the jails of Kondongi, in the jails in Boya, Bamenda, Manfe, Tiko, Nkambe, Widikum, wherever they are in Ambazonia. I just want to tell them that we are with them in spirit. I want to tell Ambazonians also, I want to call on them that this journey is not just for the people who are standing up to see how they can assist us gain our independence and statehood. If you read Nelson Mandela's biography, Long Walk to Freedom, you would realize how a lot of South Africans thought it wasn't possible. A lot of South Africans stood by the wayside. But Nelson Mandela galvanized from the 60s. He galvanized the fighting force of Umkhonto weZizwe, which stood for the arrow of the nation. And they led a protest, they led a fight, they led a sabotage that eventually delivered freedom to South Africa. I always point the example of Namibia. Our history is the same as Namibia. Namibia got its right to statehood, its Class B territorial status, just like the Southern Cameroons, just like French Cameroon got. If Namibia can be independent, the Southern Cameroons will be independent. And I just also want to draw our attention to the President of the United States, Mr. Joseph Biden, who in the cover of darkness, with raining gunfire, with raining missiles, was able to travel to Kiev, to Ukraine, to show solidarity with the Ukrainians, to say wherever there is a cry for freedom, America will be there to support them. And I want to remind Americans that Ambazonians, just like Ukrainians, have that same cry for freedom. And whether it's the State Department, whether it's the FBI, whether it's the CIA, whether it's whoever that is attending to matters that have to do with Ambazonians, they should remember that our plight is no different from the plight of Ambazonians. And to our people who are watching, I want to remind them that if you do not look back to ancestry, you will not be able to look straight forward to posterity. So reaching out and supporting the cause, reaching out and supporting our struggling brethren, our fallen brothers, our foreign fighters, our sisters who have been raped, our refugees in Nigeria, our people who are scattered around the globe, reaching out and giving our people on the home front a light of hope, a ray of hope. That is a mission that we should not jettison, for our plight is in our hands, and we are truly, in this generation, the people we have been waiting for. Thank you, Pastor Komando.
Thank you very much, Barrister, for coming. And we are looking forward to having you back on our platform one of these days, this month, because the people of Ambazonia must hear this history. It will awaken some of them who are indifferent just because they don't know where we are coming from. We don't get some plenty people they talk say, me when I stop the thing, no, I'm gonna stop the thing, no. Now, if when I know the history, as Barrister don't talk today, when I know what talk, say me will stop the thing. And first of all, nobody will be starter. And number two, we know before we hand them, maybe they can't kill all of we, take way to where they want for take. That is why we want you, Ambazonian, for know your history. And especially the youth, the way they still look very indifferent because they born them inside the slavery of La Republic. They grow up inside the slavery of La Republic. The history of your homeland and your ancestors, it will be hidden from you. And so you grow up to think you are Cameroonese, but they actually don't recognize you a bit. That is why we talk with you, we talk for here. And so once again, we thank Barrister as it don't come put with this enlightenment, take we into so many things, the way they be even written. We go continue for sound this history as God give with the grace. And one for talk say, please, if you know if you're there for home front for carry sugarcane and fufu, and you're there for diaspora, spare your breakfast for 60 days. That's $5. It will give you $300 in 60 days. That will go a long way for help the people the way they for front the way they make say we'll get back to our land. With that note, we'll go end today. I want to remind our people then say the federal draft where they hold on for Savannah zone, it just passed a few days ago. The basket to be open. You will not be there. Please bring in where to where you get them. And then the federal government, it go use them for harness where to where they go on. Then make that if people then come up for we land and we enjoy our land like people in America, they enjoy the land of America. Once again, thank you so much for coming and listening to this program. And make you know, say, Papa God, he know your name. God bless you. See you tomorrow, same time. Bye.
And you know my name. I give you glory. Abba Father, you know me. You know my name. Abba Father, you know me. You know my name. Abba Father, you know me. You know my name. You know my name more than Jesus, you said I be a picking, no. Jesus, you said your love will cover me. Every time I look around, now you are the sea. Every time I look around, now you are the pillow. Abba Father, you know me, you know my name. Abba Father, yeah, you know me, you know my name. Papa, you know my name, oh. Abba Father, yeah, you know me, you know my name. Yelele, 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 yelele. Yelele, 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 yelele. Yelele, 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 yelele. Yeah, yeah. Yelele, yelele, yelele. Abba Father, you know me, you know my name. Abba Father, you know me, you know my name. Papa, you know my name, oh. Abba Father, you know me, you know my name. Yelele, 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 yeah. Yelele, yelele, yelele. Yelele, 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 yelele. Yelele, 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 yelele. Oh, oh. Yelele, yelele, yelele. Abba Father, you know me, you know my name.
You can iron your clothes using an ice cube. Here's how.
Today,
No, it's not a steamer.
Monday, winning
It's-
number 7 day for yesterday's month of November 2022. Now, me, Rafael of the 5 Past of Bamuka, the spokesman of the ARF and the Kotolia County whole front. We, the ARS